I provided videos, pictures, phone calls. Uh, she picked him up when she got off from work. Everything was fine.
And ma'am, is it correct that you're asking for no visitation between him and the child? We have a partial agreement on this case. It is a petition to establish the parent-child relationship. The father, Mr. Jordan, is not asking for DNA testing. There's no family violence, no non-disclosure requested. The child's last name will be changed to Grandstaff, and there will be no retroactive child support. The parties don't agree on the other issues as far as conservatorship, visitation, child support, and medical. I'll go ahead and call the parties. I call the mother, Miss Brianna Grandstaff. Miss Grandstaff, could you state your full name?
My full name is Brianna Yvonne Grandstaff.
And ma'am, what's the name of the child that you have with Dedrick Jordan?
My son's name is Ignacio Samuel Higdon.
And ma'am, how old is the child?
He is currently 3 years old.
And ma'am, how do you know that Dedrick Jordan is the father?
We took a DNA test last year.
Okay, and that was not through the courts, correct?
Correct.
But it showed that Mr. Jordan was the father of the child?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And ma'am, did you hear the announcement regarding the agreed portions of the order?
Yes.
Are you in agreement to those terms of the order?
Can you repeat them for me so I make sure?
Yes. That no DNA is being requested. There's no family violence, no non-disclosure. The child's last name will be changed to Grandstaff and no retroactive child support.
Yes, I agree. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And ma'am, the two of you agreed that there's been no family violence. Has there been any family violence in the past 2 years?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And ma'am, are you in agreement for the two of you to be appointed joint managing conservators of the child?
No, ma'am.
Can you explain to the court why you don't want to be appointed joint managing conservators?
I wish to retain my full sole conservatorship, or how do you pronounce the word? I'm sorry.
Okay, so you want to be named sole managing conservator of the child?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you explain to the court why you don't want the father to be able to help make decisions regarding the child?
Well, it has been my sole responsibility the last 3 years, and despite my efforts to have him involved, he's fallen short on his promises, and overall it has still been left up to me. So legally, I would still like to keep that responsibility.
Okay, and there's no issues as far as family violence or child abuse or drug use or anything like that that would make you not want to have him be joint managing conservator?
No drug family violence. No, there's nothing like that.
Okay. And ma'am, is it correct that you're asking for no visitation between him and the child?
That is correct.
Can you explain to the court why you want no visitation?
Yes, ma'am. So in the last few months, we have not seen or heard from Mr. Jordan. The last time he saw Ignacio was April 14th. Since then, he has made no other effort to see him. He claims that I am not allowing him, which is not the case. I've kept that door open. I've simply asked him to make the effort to schedule a visit, to reach out for communication. I even offered a once a week FaceTime every Sunday night before bed. He has only managed to attend one of those FaceTimes. That was at the beginning of May. Like I said, we have not seen him very often in the last few months. We have not heard from him. Other than regarding the case, he has not reached out. And the few times that he did interact with Ignacio, the weeks after or even the days after those visits, my son would exhibit really aggressive behaviors and lash out. There were times where the teachers weren't unable to console him, and he would have full-on meltdowns pretty much the entire day at school. And then he'd get home and the behavior would continue. I don't know if anything happened during the visits, the unsupervised visits at least, But my concern is that now that my son is finally calmed down and we restart visitations, whether supervised or unsupervised, that my son's behavior will dramatically start to regress to the aggression and violence.
Okay, and ma'am, are you aware that the father's asking for phased-in visitation with the child?
Yes, ma'am.
And that he would like supervised visitation for 7 visits?
Yes, and we have attempted those ourselves outside of the courtroom.
Okay, and that you would supervise those visits?
Yes, ma'am.
And then after 7 supervised visits, he would have unsupervised visitation?
Yes, we have tried that also.
Okay, and then he would have standard visitation?
Yes, and I do not feel comfortable with that.
Okay. And ma'am, is it correct that the child's covered through health insurance at your job?
Yes, ma'am.
And you're not asking for a reimbursement for that amount?
No, ma'am. Oh, that's correct.
Okay. And ma'am, the state had calculated child support at $423 a month. Are you in agreement to that amount?
I was actually hoping to ask for no financial or child support from Mr. Jordan at all.
Okay, and can you explain to the court why you want no financial support?
As I said, I've been my son's sole primary guardian for the last 3 years of his life. I have managed to feed him, keep a roof over his head, keep him in childcare without any sort of help. When I originally filed for child support, it was under the impression that Mr. Jordan and I were working together. That quickly became just me doing everything by myself. And I would like to just continue handling my son's financial needs by myself. During our last visit, when they issued child support, Mr. Jordan privately messaged me later saying he would be willing to leave Ignacio alone, to stop interacting with him under the agreement that I dropped the child support order. And at first I thought that was unfair, but I think that in the end it would benefit my son the best.
Pass the witness. I called the father, Dedrick Jordan. Mr. Jordan, could you state your full name?
Dedrick J. Jordan Jr.
And sir, did you hear the agreements that were announced at the beginning of the hearing?
Yes, ma'am.
And sir, are you in agreement to those terms of the order?
Yes, ma'am.
And sir, I stated that you did not want DNA testing, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And sir, is it correct that y'all had DNA testing privately?
Yes, ma'am.
And that showed that you were the father?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And sir, is it correct that you're asking that you be appointed joint managing conservators with the mother?
Yes, ma'am.
And sir, are you asking that there be a geographic restriction to Dallas County and surrounding counties for where the child lives?
Could you elaborate on that?
So that would mean that Miss Grandstaff can move if she needs to, but it would need to be within Dallas County or the surrounding counties.
That's fine.
Okay. And sir, has there been any family violence between the two of you?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And sir, is there any reason why you should not be appointed joint managing conservator?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Sir, is it correct that you're asking for phased-in visitation?
Yes, ma'am. For the comfort of us both.
Okay, and that's because the child has not had overnight visits with you before?
Yes, ma'am. We have, like she did state that we did try it. I'm not sure what she's talking about, his behavior change. I've had him on 2 occasions by myself and everything was fine. Well, I'm lying. I'm sorry. I had him on 3 occasions by myself. That last occasion, we went to the barbershop together. Everything was fine. She didn't tell me anything about his behavior change, and she didn't ask me if anything was wrong. She just wanted me to keep her updated on what he was doing. I did do that. I sent videos. I've called her at work. I've asked her what can he eat, what can he eat. When I've had him, everything was fine. When he returned back to Miss Grandstaff, he was tired and ready to go to bed. All she had to do was give him a bath. He was fed, worn out. We went to the park. One time I took her to Chuck E. Cheese with a friend of mine, with my daughter as well. Everything was fine. Again, I provided videos, pictures, phone calls. She picked him up when she got off from work. Everything was fine.
Okay. And sir, is it correct that you'd like supervised visits for 7 visits?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you want that to be the first, third, fifth Saturdays of the month, from 8 to 5?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then after that, do you want to have 7 visits unsupervised from 8 to 5 on the first, third, fifth Saturdays?
Yes, ma'am.
And then do you want to have standard visitation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And sir, is there any reason why you should not have visitation with the child?
No, ma'am, not at all.
Sir, is it correct that you make $16.21 an hour at your job?
Yes, ma'am.
And sir, I calculated your gross income at $2,809.73 before taxes or anything else is taken out of your.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And sir, are you in agreement to the mother carrying health insurance through her job?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and at this time, she's not asking to be reimbursed, so your medical support would be $0 a month.
Yes, that's fine.
And then, sir, are you in agreement to the child support of $423 a month?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, is there anything else that you want to tell the court, sir?
Everything Ms. Grandstaff said isn't a lie, but I just feel like I get it. He does not know who I am. But why let me keep him so soon if you, well, first, why bring me to court if you don't want no visitation or child support? So like, what do you, and the only reason why I stated what I stated in the text message was because Ms. Grandstaff decided it was okay to be controlled, and I wasn't okay with it. I don't think it's fair. I want to be part of his life, and I should be part of his life. That's all I'm asking. I'm not trying to come in and take him away from her or her family. No, I want to know him. He has a sister, aunties, cousins. Like, we want to get to know him as well.
Okay,
That's
pass
all.
the
I,
witness.
that's,
All right, so the parts y'all agreed to, those are all fine with me. Now, what I have to make a decision on is based on what's in the best interest of the child. It's in the best interest of every child that they have 2 parents, not 1 parent. I don't know what your problems are as far as why y'all haven't had communication in the last 4 months. We're talking about a 3-year-old. You want me to punish your child for the next 15 years because of the last 4 months? That doesn't make sense to me. That's not something that I'm going to do. I understand y'all may not have the best relationship, but that's not a good reason. Your child will benefit from having both parents participate. With that being said, Mr. Jordan, you need to participate with your visitation on a regular basis. If you understood that you haven't done that on a regular basis, that needs to happen.
yes, sir.
Instead of that, there really isn't any reason to have 1 parent instead of 2. I don't quite understand what you're asking for, Ms. Grandstaff. It doesn't make any sense. The only thing that makes sense to me is you're thinking about yourself and what's in your best interest and what's easier for you, but not what's in the best interest of your child. When I start talking about child, then that changes everything. It's not always what the parents want. Children want something different. They want both parents, not just 1 parent. They might even want step parents, but we shouldn't limit it just because y'all 2 can't communicate well. The child support is $423. I'm ordering that y'all be joint managing conservators. That means that y'all have rights to make decisions regarding your child, but Ms. Grandstaff, you have custody. Custody and conservatorship are not the same thing. You'll have full custody, but you have to make decisions with Mr. Jordan. Like any medical or educational decisions, you need to consult him and let him know, and he has a right to access to that kind of information as well. I don't think the supervised visitation is going to work. I'm glad that you're offering it, Mr. Jordan, but it sounds like Ms. Grandstaff is the problem or part of the problem. So her supervising for 8 hours for 7 Saturdays isn't going to make any sense.
Yes, sir.
So I'm doing unsupervised visits from 8 to 5 on the first, third, and fifth Saturdays for 7 visits. So it'd be 7 visits. Would it be just like 1 day every other week? Unsupervised. So you pick them up at 8 in the morning, bring it back at 5 p.m. I'm not doing any supervised visits because it doesn't make sense. I don't like supervised visits. where the custodial parent is there present, because to me, that's not visitation. That's just having a guest over for 8 hours. That's not parental visitation. So that's not gonna work, and if y'all have conflicts with each other, I'm sure you don't want to spend 8 hours with each other. So that doesn't make any sense. So we'll do unsupervised visits from 8 AM to 5 PM. That starts this Saturday, and that'll be every other Saturday until we finish the 7 visits. Mr. Jordan, you need to do those visits. That's very important that you do that and do that on a consecutive basis, not once every 3 or 4 months. I understand, Ms. Grandstaff, that sometimes fathers, when they get that first letter from the child support office, that they kind of stay away. And they say, well, let me wait to see what happens in court. And that may be 4 to 12 months later. I don't know if that's the only reason, but you have to understand that's typically what happens in a lot of cases. So we're going to start over beginning this Saturday. After you finish the 7 visits, you have unsupervised visits, which is Friday night at 6 until Sunday night at 6. Every other, that'll be the visitation order. Y'all have to follow the court orders. And even if you don't agree with them, that's what should happen, because again, it's in your child's best interests.
I have a question.
I'm not done yet. Let's see. Okay, and then you're not requesting any medical support, which you're entitled to, but you say you don't want it, that's fine. Court costs is billed to Mr. Jordan. I'm not gonna change my mind no matter what you say, so if you have a question, you can ask me a question, but you're just trying to convince me to change my mind, I'm not gonna do that. What do you have, ma'am?
I was just curious as far as overnights, where the overnight visits would happen. I'm not really sure where Mr. Jordan is staying, and my concern is my son won't have a place to stay in those meantimes, because I know he's moved a few times since we last spoke. So I'm just curious to know.
Yeah, well, y'all are both ordered to already in the court order to notify each other where you live and if you have any changes of address. You do not have the right to object to him having visitation because of where he lives unless you can prove to the court that it's an unsafe place. So if Mr. George is living with a girlfriend or a friend or something, even if the child is sleeping on the couch, doesn't mean that he can't have visitation unless you can meet that very high burden that the child is somehow unsafe. So that's kind of where we are, okay?
Yes, sir.
Not everyone can afford an extra room for a child. Okay, anything else?
No, sir.
No, Judge.
Okay, all right, hopefully that'll work for both of you and the child. Y'all are done with court today. The Attorney General's office will draft an order, email y'all a copy. Anytime you have questions, read the order again to make sure you understand what's going on. Y'all are excused. You can press leave on the Zoom to exit out.